So let's talk about some collaborations. Collaborations are a very smart way to expand your audience, right? And they're basically on the rise. At least brands are starting to do these multiple times a year. It used to be sort of a risk to do a collaboration because you didn't know if those audiences would properly cross pollinate or not. And we're starting to see that this is becoming a standard for a brand as opposed to an exception or just, once or twice a year. So they're becoming increasingly more popular and, all of fashion is always a collaborative movement anyway. So sort of cross marketing between brands with celebrities with other industries is a really smart way for a fresh perspective into new products, and retailers regularly collaborate with these like true designers to sort of elevate their offerings. But we're starting to see now that even the more guarded houses that used to always be very sort of pure in their product development and very insular are starting to recognize that collaborations are definitely a successful way to market and to create new product. So let's take a look let's start with celebrities. So celebrity pairings, there's a very big difference between a celebrity or an artist or a musician or a model being an ambassador for your brand, and also or working behind the scenes creatively. Um, and this we see a lot with houses and particularly celebrities in the film, TV, and music industry, that they'll oftentimes become these house muses and these brand ambassadors. They come in, they model the collections, they work on or they appear in the campaigns, but they don't necessarily do any of the creative work, right? But with these collaborations, we're starting to see more and more of that be more of a marriage of the minds as opposed to front of camera or in the workroom. So one of the more successful collaborations of the past couple years is Tommy Hilfiger and Gigi Hadid. So Tommy Hilfiger and Gigi Hadid, Tommy Hilfiger particularly benefited from this collaboration because Gigi Hadid at the time was probably the world's most recognized supermodel, right? She's part of the new generation of supers. She had 55 million followers on Instagram, and this allowed Tommy Hilfiger to connect with this new female customer base, right? When they debuted the Tommy and Gigi collection, they generated 900% increase in traffic to TommyHilfiger.com in the 48 hours after the runway show. So it was very profitable for them. Not only is she a house muse, but now she's also collaborating to create collections for Tommy Hilfiger. And it was very, very smart for them and very profitable. Another person or celebrity who has managed to leverage their social media following was Puma and Selena Gomez. So Selena Gomez, in at the time when she was brought on as Puma's sort of next collaborator, she was the most followed person on Instagram, right? And Instagram is where everyone is going to see trends, to see things that are aspirational, to set the tone for the retail industry. So it's a huge, huge factor on how brands decide to market to millennials, to Gen Z, right? And so Selena Gomez is sort of the American female millennial consumer, right? A single one of her posts could generate millions and millions of likes. So if you think about this, Selena Gomez has 182 million Instagram followers. Puma has 11 million Instagram followers. So Puma essentially leveraged the social media clout to advance its greater impact, right? So they could have come out with a collaboration or a product on their own, but utilizing Selena's star power, they were able to do quite well. And Selena's post equated to nearly about $3.5 million in media impact value per post, whereas Puma's was averaging about 195,000 per post. So it was, again, another example of a young a young artist leveraging their celebrity to help and collaborate with a product. And in this case, it was with Puma. Selena Gomez has done a couple of collaborations. She's also a house muse for Coach as well. Rihanna and Dior. So Rihanna and Dior, this was one of the most talked about collections when it came out, right? This was Maria Grazia Chiuri's first collection for Dior. She went in strong, right, with this We Should All Be Feminists campaign, which of course is based on this TED Talk that was done by the same name by a feminist activist. And when Rihanna stepped into this collaboration, it made a lot of sense because at the time, Rihanna has always been about inclusivity and feminism in her Fenty collections, whether it was through her cosmetics or Fenty Savage or her other collaborations. So for Dior to sort of tap Rihanna to work on this collaboration, it made a lot of sense for them in terms of the through line and the story that they were trying to tell with this collaboration. And proceeds from this particular t-shirt went to Rihanna's nonprofit organization, which is the Clara Lionel Foundation, which she set up in honor of her grandparents that helped support education and health and emergency responses around the world. So not only was this, you know, smart in a business sense, it was also smart in a philanthropical sense as well. So Billie Eilish and Takashi Murakami. Billie Eilish and Takashi Murakami have collaborated before. Takashi Murakami is one of these artists that pops up in collaborations in the fashion industry once every other season. He's very popular and very lovable, right? He's known for his really poppy pop art, smiling flowers. A lot of designers will collaborate with him when they want to create something very pop culture-y and very fun. He actually worked with Billie Eilish on the You Should See Me in a Crown video. So this was a partnership that already existed. And when they wanted to take that sort of partnership into the retail world, they teamed up with Uniqlo, right? So this is not Takashi Murakami's first endeavor with Uniqlo. He's actually built many collections there, but it is the first which Billie Eilish is sort of taking part in. Now the collaboration just launched this past May, so many people may have not been able to necessarily see the collection in person or in stores, as most of the country, at least domestically here in the US, has been shut down for COVID. But as stores slowly start to reopen, go check this collaboration out. I think it's a lot of fun. A lot of the clothing and the t-shirts that are inspired, of course, by Billie Eilish's sort of loungy, slouchy kind of look, right? Nothing form-fitting, everything that sort of fits very loosely on the body, which is on brand for who she is. And they're really fun, and they have certainly this idea of Japanese animation, of course, Uniqlo being a Japanese brand, and Uniqlo being a Japanese brand, and Takashi Murakami being a Japanese artist. So this was a marriage of the minds and worked very perfectly with Uniqlo's idea of capitalizing on pop culture and anime, and Billie Eilish fit into that conversation quite perfectly. Then we have Chanel and Pharrell Williams. So Pharrell Williams has had a relationship with the late Karl Lagerfeld for many years, and acted as a sort of undercover house muse for Chanel for quite some time before actually coming upon creation with Chanel. So he was certainly I call him a house muse or a brand ambassador for Chanel, and then took the reins creatively. He had a wonderful relationship with Karl Lagerfeld, built on a lot of mutual respect between their different art forms, and decided to create a collection for Chanel. And it was really, really smart. It was very out of the box kind of thinking for Chanel, which is, of course, a very classic heritage house. And this collection was definitely, it was bright, it was poppy, it was young and fun and energetic, which is exactly the kinds of words I would use to describe Pharrell as a musician, right? If you're familiar with his music, there's something just so enigmatic and fun about it. And his collection, I think he did a really great job teaming up with Chanel to really showcase his artistry through the lens of the Chanel heritage, right? So it's always going to be classic Chanel, but it's interpreted through the eyes of Pharrell Williams. And he, like I said, has been with the house for quite some time, between doing the runway shows and performing at Chanel parties and working in campaigns and music videos and all kinds of campaign videos as well. So this was a very, very smart partnership. All right, Louis Vuitton and Supreme. So let's move on to some brand on brand action, or brand on brand collaborations, right? I want to start with this one. It's an older collaboration, right? This was from 2011. But the thing about Supreme and Louis Vuitton teaming up in 2011 is that it was the biggest collaboration probably of the decade. If you look at any list, if you Google like famous collaborations of the past decade or 20 years, or Supreme and Louis Vuitton will absolutely be somewhere on that list. And that's because of how monumental this was, right? Think of these two polarizing opposite brands. They couldn't be more different, and yet they couldn't be more alike, right? If you know Supreme, right, they started off as a very small skate brand and they evolved very quickly into this $1 billion streetwear brand. Now, think about this: Supreme only has 11 stores worldwide. How did they manage to create such a presence globally and turn that tiny little skate brand into $1 billion business? And the short answer to that is collaborations, right? Collaborations with luxury brands, making something highbrow and lowbrow, right? Their logo, they are known for their red and white logo, and their limited drops or their product releases, right? They release things very small and incremental amounts. In fact, this is something that is called and studied, it's called the supremium effect, right? People buying all of these limited pieces and then reselling, and the resale value can be up to 30 times the original price that you purchased it for, which creates this organic microeconomy, right? And Supreme's known for sort of appropriating images. It's part of their brand DNA, and part of why the reason why people absolutely love Supreme is that it is a anti-status status symbol, right? So when I think of all of that, and then I think on the flip side of all of what Louis Vuitton represents, it is the opposite of that, right? Louis Vuitton is almost the ultimate touchstone to the luxury movement, and one of the highest regarded luxury brands in the world. So for these two to pair up, it was really unique and really shocking, and it absolutely worked. And unlike any of Supreme's other collaborations, this one was actually not available in Supreme stores or on their website, which is something they had never done before. This was only available through Louis Vuitton, exclusively at the Maisons and exclusively on the website. And this resulted in one of the biggest moments in contemporary fashion history, right? An iconic streetwear brand, an iconic luxury house teaming up to sort of change the landscape of what a collaboration should be and just how successful a collaboration should be, right? If you look these things up on sort of resale sites, pieces from this collaboration from 2011 are still going for thousands upon thousands of dollars. That is, if you can even find authenticated real pieces that are still in existence, or that are being resold. Of course, they're still in existence, but this was an awesome celebration of logos and iconography and brand history. And they mashed up and they overlapped, and the patterns were bold and red. The red was pulled from Supreme, of course, and then Louis Vuitton adding their signature quadrifoils and LV to the mix for all of the collections. This was for the menswear collection, by the way. Kim Jones had collaborated with Supreme for this. And the rollout, interestingly, people will line up on the streets days before and sleep outside for Supreme collections. The rollout was, the anticipation of this collection was so great that they actually had to change their strategy for distribution for this collection, because it crashed sites, and it was so, people were waiting for like a full week sleeping on the street for the collaboration. So it was extremely successful and basically set the tone for everybody else to step up to the plate. So that being said, let's move on over to our next collaboration, Coach and Disney. This to me makes a lot of sense because, Coach is a classic American heritage brand, right? Beloved here in the US, established in 1941. And to me, nothing is more American or classic Americana than Mickey Mouse, right? He's like the gold standard for all things American, right? I'm a kid who grew up in Florida, so Disney World was in my backyard, and I have a lot of nostalgic feelings for Mickey Mouse, and so do a lot of people around the world. This was a wildly successful collection. This is also not the first time Coach has collaborated with Disney. I believe 4 times on 4 unique collections, but this one specifically was for the Coach 1941 collection with Disney. So it had this energy of Mickey, and Mickey being a rebel, and this was for the 75th anniversary of Coach. So they wanted to go all out, and Stuart Beavers, who was the creative director, he said that Mickey Mouse has always been this playful rebel and a timeless symbol of creativity and American joy, right? And that's exactly what I think of when I think of Coach. So this was a really lovely little pairing. The Montclair Genius concept. All right, so Montclair Genius is not one specific collaboration, but rather 9 separate collaborations. I always think it's really unique when a house can take their proprietary product and entrust it in the hands of multiple different people, right? They say, hey, we understand the value in someone else's point of view of our outerwear, right? So their iconic, beautiful puffer jackets and all of their sort of Osprey collections were entrusted to the likes of Simone Roca and Craig Green, Pier Paolo Piccoli, who is the creative director for Valentino. So we had all these capsule collections built around the idea of Montclair tapping into these geniuses, right? So they picked 9 different geniuses, and they all gave their interpretation of the same product, which is a really fantastic exercise in originality and in reinvention, right? So these are really, I love this collection. I love this campaign. They took it on a museum exhibition that went around the country, right? The Montclair Genius pop-up shops are still currently, some of these collections are still currently being produced. So check them out in a Montclair near you. They're absolutely fantastic. Versace and H&M. So H&M annually has a luxury designer that they collaborate with. This is a tradition that started, I believe, it dates all the way back to maybe 2006 or 2004. It began with Karl Lagerfeld. And since then, Versace, or rather H&M, has collaborated with Erdem, Moschino, Giambattista Valli, you name it, they've sort of Balmain, right? But there was something about the Versace and H&M collaboration that was really, really special. And Donatella was tapped by H&M to create this capsule collection of affordable versions of her sort of brightly colored and designed prints, right? This collection sold out immediately after when it went on sale. And it was met with a huge launch party. Prince performed at the time. And since then, it's sort of set the tone, right? Like I said, this was not the first time that H&M had collaborated with a luxury brand to create these accessible fast fashion versions of these designers, but it was certainly one of the most successful to date. And even still, I whenever a new H&M luxury house capsule collection drops, they do them once a year, right? I always think back to the time that Versace sort of knocked it out of the park and broke the internet with this collaboration. It was very monumental for both Versace and for H&M. Balenciaga and Crocs. So in 2017, Crocs basically like broke the internet as being the official sort of like anti-shoe, right? Like anyone who loved shoes immediately had a very strong opinion on what Crocs were in the greater sort of scheme of footwear, right? And love it or hate it, when you see something like this, when you see a house like Balenciaga, known for all of their beautiful couture pieces and their very architectural designs, collaborate with Crocs, right? It's immediately going to get a lot of attention. And this was, again, one of those very polarizing collections that you can Google it and everyone's got something to say about it, right? People either loved it for the kitschy value of it, for the sort of satirical value of it, this idea of putting Crocs as platforms when they're supposed to be like utility footwear, um, and or they didn't like it, right? And both of those opinions are perfectly valid, but it was definitely a collection that turned heads and was extremely popular, whether for good reasons or for bad. The original pair of Balenciaga Crocs at retail retailed for $850, right? um, by the way, they sold out online before they were even released in stores. So just when you think people would never buy that, quote unquote, right? You're always surprised. Fendi and Fila. So these are two brands that, from the beginning, you knew that this was sort of going to be a success, right? Like there's a big contrast of like elegance and sophistication with a brand like Fendi, and then there is the sort of sporty Italian standard that Fila offers. So when these two collaborated, it was really fun, it was really unexpected, and it was really beautiful. And that's what I think makes a good collaboration, right? Whenever there is a something that is unexpected, something that is different, right? That you didn't think that you would be seeing come down a runway, right? A logo mashup, for instance. I absolutely adore the way that Fendi, known for their double F's for their fun fur logo, went ahead and adopted the logo of Fila, right? So they understand that that logos and insignias have a lot of power to them, right? And so melting those two together, this was probably my favorite brand collaboration in terms of the logo, the way that they melted the logos together. Really smart and beautifully done. Calvin Klein and Amazon fashion. So Calvin Klein, last fall, Calvin Klein joined forces with Amazon Fashion to create this online shopping experience and for their capsule collection, right? So Calvin Klein, of course, is a clothing brand. Now, Amazon, we know them as being this sort of huge retailer that sells anything and everything, right, in the e-commerce world. But they are slowly but surely dipping their toes into the fashion world. And when Amazon Fashion launched, they recognized that they would need very exclusive brand partnerships to give them the clout that these big brands already had, right? They really wanted to be taken seriously. So they created these pop-up shops all throughout everywhere. This particular one was in the Flatiron district in New York City. There were these activations where you could see the collection, you could purchase the collection online, and then they had all kinds of, in true Amazon fashion, giving away all kinds of goodies, right? Whether it was a photo booth or bottled water or popcorn, you could play games through the Amazon app. You could download looks from the Calvin Klein capsule collection and that giant Together in Denim billboard. There were photo opportunities. So this was a very big social media moment for Calvin Klein and Amazon, as well as being very smart in that Amazon recognizing that they had to team up and go big or go home, right? Moving on to Dior and Cause. So, to kick off his role as creative director for the Dior men's collection, Kim Jones channeled his inner love of streetwear brands and collaborated with Cause. Now, if you're not familiar, Cause, very much like Supreme, is the brand that just lives on collaborations, right? Cause has collaborated with Alexander Wang, with J.W. Anderson, with Roger Federer, right? With Uniqlo, a bunch of different brands, but teaming up with Dior was next level elevation for them, right? And it was still playful. If you're not familiar with Cause, they are, or he is an artist who used to actually, Brian Donnelly is his name. He's an artist who used to work for Disney, and so there is this artistic sort of edge to these playful characters. They feel animated even though they're not. So this was a risky move for Dior, but again, it definitely I think paid off in that it was very successful, and it sort of set the tone for Kim Jones being a risk taker as a creative director, because Kim Jones was also one of the was the person who created or rather collaborated with Supreme and Louis Vuitton back when he was with them. Moving on to, so our department stores will oftentimes pick particular designers so that they can create capsule collections, right? It gives them an excuse to have proprietary collections and exclusive drops in their spaces, right? And everyone at the end of the day, it's always about exclusivity and exclusive content and something that is remotely and only yours, right? You can only get it at Tom Brown, or you can only get it at Nordstrom. So this was another smart collaboration between Tom Brown and Nordstrom, and this was, I love the concept of this, right? It's Tom Brown designed 30 pieces that were exclusive to Nordstrom, a lot of them having this sort of sporty edge, but kind of this vintage approach, right? So the campaign featured and the store had this beautiful sort of lockers. It was set up like this locker room, and all of the sort of Tom Brown grays, right? These soft charcoals and these very kind of soft, easy, fluid, and neutral colors. And the collaboration and the collection itself had a lot of skinny suits, sneakers, stainless steel water bottles. So there was a little bit of athleisure wear in there, mixed in with sort of classic and quirky men's suiting. Also, with our department stores, keeping in tow, we go across the pond over to France to Galerie Lafayette and Instagram. So, creating a collaboration between a cross industry, right? So if you're not a brand with another brand, that presents a whole new set of fun and unique challenges, right? So teaming up with a brand like Instagram, which is a social media platform, right? Instagram isn't in the business of selling clothes, or are they, right? You don't go walk into the Instagram retail store, although Instagram has become one of the most profitable centers for businesses to do business, right? For brands to do business, right? As it is the most popular social media platform in the world. So when Gallery Lafayette and Instagram teamed up, they created an Instagram shopping real life pop-up shop. So this featured brands that were exclusive to the Instagram platform. So it was called Instagram in Real Life, IRL. You could walk through this tunnel, and of course, you had all your photo ops. And it featured particular brands that only were sold through Instagram, or that sort of got their Instagram, right? So if you think of one of the most successful Instagram brands is Glossier, right? If you think of Glossier, right, they had this very big following because of their blog Into the Gloss. And they leveraged that into a huge social media following, and now they have this billion-dollar presence in brick and mortar stores that they wouldn't have had it not been for their very, very smart use of Instagram. Nike and Off-White. So Virgil Abloh is sort of like the patron saint of streetwear, right? And Off-White oftentimes is equated as like the it kind of streetwear brand. There are many and many, many successful ones, but there was something about Virgil that set a tone of sort of being very unique and very special. So when I think of streetwear brands, of course, sneakers is the best sort of marriage of the minds for that, right? And nobody does sneakers like Nike, right? So this collection was really smart, and what I thought unique is the most thing about it, right? If you see Virgil on the bottom left-hand corner, right, Virgil is wearing a white t-shirt that has the classic Nike check, and then it says the word logo in quotes, right? Now he did this with a Sharpie. Not only was this collection really, really popular and profitable for Nike, both and Off-White, but it was a bit of a social commentary, right? Everything is in quotes. If you see air is in quotes, the word logo is in quotes, foam, right? So this idea of building something out of nothing is an idea that I think Virgil, from his company and his ascent into sort of luxury high fashion as now the creative director of Louis Vuitton Men's, is always prevalent in his products, right? It has a sense of humor. It's very kind of caustic and biting. It can be sarcastic and smart, right? People want to wear something and associate themselves with people who they feel a either like moral kinship with, or they really believe in their product, or they like who they are as a designer. And I think that is a lot of what Virgil has going for him, is that people really gravitate towards his personal politics, and you can see that in the product, right? It's no small feat to create a collaboration with, you know, one of the largest sneaker brands in the world, and to then sort of lovingly mock their product, right, by putting air quotes around it, is a really, of all, risky and ballsy thing to do, but also smart and understanding. And it says a lot about Nike, that Nike trusted him as a designer to uphold the heritage of their brand and elevate it, which is exactly what this collaboration did. So this is another Louis Vuitton collaboration, but this was a collaboration that was done with artist Jeff Koons, and Jeff Koons is probably one of the biggest, I would say, pop artists of the 21st century, right? If you go into any museum around the world, any modern art museum, you'll find a Jeff Koons piece, right? He's in the Broad in Los Angeles, the the Museum of Modern Art in New York, right? The Prada Foundation has a beautiful piece by Jeff Koons. And so when Louis Vuitton was looking to team up with an artist, something that they do pretty regularly, Jeff Koons was a big departure from some of the artists that they had collaborated with in the past, but it was very extraordinary. Now, what was special about this is that in their history, in their, you know, over 100-year history, Louis Vuitton has never allowed anyone to touch their monogram, right? Their monogram is so proprietary, it is so protected, it is what identifies them. In fact, it is the most counterfeit monogram in the world, right? They protect it very heavily, and they have never allowed a collaborator or an artist or another designer to sort of touch that until Jeff Koons. So if you look in the right photo with the famous Koons bunny, to the bottom right, you will see the Louis Vuitton LV rebranded to the JK for Jeff Koons, right? So this was, again, a big risk for them to take, but it paid off. It was received quite well. The collaboration sold out very, very quickly. And the entire collection, aside from Jeff Koons showcasing his famous, Jeff Koons is of course known for these beautiful chromatic balloon animals and balloon animal shapes, right? It almost looks like they're mylar. He's also known for sort of parody and satire, right? So very similar to kind of what Virgil did with the air quotes. This collection featured the artwork of the masters of Vincent van Gogh and of Salvador Dali, and it placed his name on it, right? So this appropriation of high art and high fashion mirrored with this idea of Louis Vuitton being the most appropriated monogram in the world and counterfeit. Very smart, very meta. And then finally, we end with a fun collaboration. This is a collaboration between Moschino and Sims. Jeremy Scott of Moschino, of course, has probably one of the most playful sense of humors of any creative director of any brand, right? He stepped into the shoes at Moschino and immediately knew that this high-end luxury Italian house needed a breath of fresh air, but more so a sort of sense of levity. And so Moschino always teams up with kitschy, pop culture brands, right? They've done collaborations with My Little Pony and McDonald's and Windex, right? So for them to collaborate with Sims, it is not this is not surprising at all. It's also not their first video game collaboration. They did a collaboration with Nintendo for Super Mario Brothers. Now, it's worth saying that, the fashion industry is $1 trillion industry, and the video game industry is a booming $1 billion industry, right? Places like Comic Con exist for a reason, right? People really want to be a part of the culture of video games. And AE, when they decided to sign up with Moschino, knew that, right? They knew that this sort of collaboration of a high end fashion house and a huge design or a huge creator of video games, AE, which is the company that created The Sims, that this would be something that would be very, very profitable for them. And this is another collection that it was released and immediately sold out, right? So this was the Sims Moschino for Sims Pixel Capsule collection. And if you're familiar with The Sims, right, Sims are basically simulated to be like real life. So this was a very smart, really quirky, and weird collaboration that absolutely worked for both brands. And that does it for our collaborations. If you have any questions, please feel free to submit those to any of our platforms. We are currently on Instagram and LinkedIn and I believe Facebook Live. So by all means, let us know, what are some of your favorites that weren't mentioned here today? Because there are a ton of them. Like I said, these are just some highlights. While we are waiting for some questions to come in, um, we have a fantastic chat on Thursday. So please join us Thursday again for our industry speakers. Every Thursday, we have members or of our WindowsWear community, our clients, as well as industry speakers that give presentations for an hour on Thursday. Next Tuesday, I will be back with let's see, what are we doing next Tuesday? Oh, next Tuesday we're gonna actually have a conversation on COVID and retail to see sort of where the future is moving, what's currently going on domestically and worldwide. So we'll have a chat on that. So tune in next Tuesday at 3 p.m. and this Thursday at 3 p.m. for our industry talk. Since I have no questions for today, I'm going to go ahead and end early. Thank you so much for those who have joined us on all our social media platforms. As always, have a fantastic day, and we will see you on Thursday at 3 p.m.